Hello and welcome to the Commercial Real Estate Talk podcast. This is episode 128. Miami office shines, industrial wines. And I'm sorry, that's the best I can come up with. I wanted it to rhyme, but we've got some office to talk about today and some industrial. Some of it is centered primarily in Miami. And listen, Miami continues to dominate the national news, but we've got quite a bit to get to when it comes to office and industrial on this podcast. If you haven't subscribed, please do. If you haven't visited Commercial Real Estate Talk channel on YouTube, it's at CRE Help. That's how to find us. We've got a list of shorts rolling out every week, one or two of these, with the intent of teaching commercial real estate in 1 minute or less. So that's it for housekeeping. I got a comment about I don't like that I have to listen to 5 minutes of yap before we get into the content. I respect that. We're under 1 minute. Let's go. First article comes to us from CoStar, and it's entitled Landmark Coral Gables Office Property Secures $69.9 million refinancing. Why is this such a big deal? Because banks aren't lending money to office across the country, period, right? So the fact that they were able to refinance shows the strength of the Miami market, particularly Coral Gables. If you're not familiar with Coral Gables, it's a beautiful market right in the center of Miami-Dade County, just south of the Miami airport. It's about 4.5 miles west of Brickell Avenue, downtown Miami. So think Coral Gables, you've got multinational firms, big banks, you've got a lot of the consulate offices that are located within the Miami market here in Coral Gables, ease of access to the airport, beautiful neighborhood, five-star city, own schools, own police department, own fire department. It's a beautiful little community in Miami. And as you can see from the photo of this building, let me scroll this around a little bit so you see a little bit more. This is 4,000 Ponds. It just refinanced for nearly $70 million. You notice something different about this building in Coral Gables? If you drive around Coral Gables, you're going to notice these buildings are designed with a Spanish influence, right? Mediterranean influence. You've got balconies, you've got porticos, you've got a lot of a precast barrel tile roof, right? This is not what you're going to see in New York. You're not going to see this in downtown where there's glass structures, beautiful buildings. But Coral Gables is a little bit unique in that sense. And I think that's why it attracts the multinational Latin America CEO. You can have your $4, $5, $6 million house and be in work in 5 minutes. And your kids can go to all the best schools. All the best private schools in Miami are located within this district. So that's the appeal of Coral Gables. You can only build 16 stories max in the city of Coral Gables. And that's only if you build Mediterranean. Otherwise, you're capped at 13 stories. And that's why a lot of the office buildings will almost look like resi buildings in a sense in Coral Gables. It's not for everybody. I've had clients from New York go through Coral Gables and say, get me out of here. This is not for me. But for those of us in South Florida, we love Coral Gables. 4,000 Ponds just refinanced. Really don't want to talk too much about that. Congratulations, guys. Ugo Colombo developed. Wonderful building. You've got it's a rare building because you have the collection. Ferrari and Porsche and so forth, selling cars downstairs with an office building upstairs. It was a unique property when it came to market, and they've done well. They've always maintained good occupancy. This is a former building where HBO Latin America was located in until they left years ago. Okay, so we'll tell you a little bit about the building to give them their props. Located at 4,000 Ponce de Leon, 4,000 Ponce, originally built by Colombo CMC. 2001, 2002. Property is 150,000 square feet of office, 32,000 square feet of retail. What else can we talk about? Official Ferrari dealership of Miami. Office tenants include Coldwell Banker, Hemisphere Media Group, Korn Ferry, and Jet Set Pilates. All right. So what I really wanted to highlight here is this paragraph here, and that is the strength of the Miami market. Miami office is outpacing the national market. And really what we find in the national markets is office occupancy continues to diminish, which means vacancies going up, particularly from work from home, and yet rates keep inching up. Well, Miami is unique because, yes, rates are inching up, but occupancy is also going up. It's not diminishing. So here we have dozens of companies and expansions, relocations, to the Miami area have driven office rents in the central business district and Brickell financial districts to new heights over the past years. We've covered that. Leaving companies to look for alternatives in nearby Coral Gables, compared to Brickell, where market rents average $85.68. Now that's a huge swath. It's actually closer to $105, $106 for Class A space. Class B is dragging that $85 number down. You're not going to find a Class A building for $85 today. Sorry, folks. Brickell. The top tier properties in downtown are $63.60. Very similar. I'd say they're closer to 80 to 90 for the top tier Class A buildings. $50 to $60 for your lower grade buildings. But Coral Gables is asking $56.11 a square foot for the top tier buildings. We can affirm that. And these are coming from CoStar data, obviously. They're the ones producing this report. And so that's a tremendous savings. You're talking about 50% savings between downtown, or particularly Brickell Avenue, and Coral Gables. That's a tremendous savings. In April, the tech giant Apple announced 41,000 square feet at the Plaza Coral Gables. That's the latest and greatest new building. It's 2.2 million square foot mixed use by Agave Holdings. Now, of the 2.2 million, maybe 500,000 feet of it or so are office. And they're finally starting to lease up. They're in a good position now to capture those tenants who are great tenants but not willing to pay triple digits for office rents. They can come over to Coral Gables. Right? That's the gist of this article, but it highlights what's happening in Miami. Here's another. This one's from Globe Street, and this one just came out recently. Office vacancy drops as rents increase in Miami. Now, that's exact opposite of what we're seeing nationally, which we'll talk about when we get to a couple of these other articles. Hey, there's Eric Messer. Used to work with him. All right, so office vacancy drops as rental rate increases. Hot market defies national trend. New developments are pre-leased. Well, let's dig in here. National outlook for office sector does not look bright, with the grim reality settling in that nationwide vacancy rate of 20% or worse. And it's not going to get any better in the foreseeable future. Why is that? We're still recovering from the pandemic. And yeah, I know folks talk about unemployment is down, the stock market is up. And so according to an inflation, the last report is getting hedged in a little bit. Of course, that doesn't account for the past 3 years of inflation that add up. So a modest 3 or 4% increase in inflation is built on 30 to 40% of increases that we have absorbed, and just here we are. And I'm sorry, I see this little blue light. I don't know what I'm going to do about it. There you go. Pop it up, pop it off. According to Moody's, 20% office vacancy rate notched in the U.S. 2024 second quarter is the overture of a swan dive that will see office availability continue to rise to the end of 2026. So you get that? We're just at the precipice, folks. We're still on the downward slope of the mountain when it comes to office vacancy, and that's primarily due to the work from home induced from the pandemic. Corporate America is still reeling. I talk to folks all the time that have been paying for office space that they're not utilizing. And now 2024, 2025, 2026, those leases are starting to roll, which means that every opportunity they're downsizing. They're giving up that space. Or I have one company that they had 10 employees when they signed the lease pre-COVID. They're expiring at the end of this year. And since COVID, they're down to 5 employees. And of those, majority of them work from home. So, there you have it. We want to renew our lease, potentially, or downsize, but we're not going to pay more, is their feedback, because we have the option of just going fully remote. And that's a possibility that a lot of people are considering. But here's the good news. Miami, I love this article. Jack Rogers, touche here. Here's the good news. In Miami, they still know how to turn the beat around. And I don't want to have any copyright violations, or I would have played the song, but this is Gloria Stefan's Turn the Beat Around. I'm not going to sing it for you. In the second quarter, results for Miami office sector, you can hear loud percussion of a vibrant market where demand is hot, space is tight, and the vacancy rate is going down. Here's the rat-tat-tat-tat. There's a rat-tat-tat on the floor. Oh, he's using the lyrics of this Gloria Stefan beautifully. I'm going to email him, by the way, and just give him his props. Okay, following about 90,000 square feet of move-ins, total vacancy in Miami ended Q2 at 15.8%. Okay, national average is 20%. Miami's at 15.8%. We saw 90,000 square feet of move-ins. That's absorptions. That means that we kept pace and didn't lose space, but we diminished our vacancy by 90,000 square feet. 50% basis point decrease quarter over quarter, and a 90 basis point drop year over year in comparison, according to JLL's latest market report. Leasing activity picked up in Q2 with more than 855,000 square feet of transaction volume. A total even been higher, not for the limited availability of large blocks and prime assets. So here's what they're saying is the majority of this is still Brickell focused. You can't find large blocks anymore in Brickell, and we are years, 3 years, maybe 4 from the next office tower, even though there's been 4 announced. I think 2 will happen. Look at it in past podcasts where we covered that. I think 2 are going to happen on Brickell because they're anchored, one by Banco Santander, the other one by Citadel. And so those have anchor tenants. Those are being built almost for owner occupants plus additional square footage. So I think those 2 will happen. I don't know if the other 2 will happen on a spec basis, but at least 2 of those towers should happen. But even when they happen, we're looking at a 3-4 year cycle, which means Brickell tenants rates have a long runway to continue increasing. So bat down the hatches. Get a hold of us at Blue Box Real Estate. We'd love to help you maneuver through this time. All right, Miami is emerging from the frenzy of post-pandemic demand and is settling into a vibrant new normal, JLL's report said. While the market remains a top destination for new-to-market tenants seeking world-class office space, renewal activity is also steady. The new normal in Miami includes new office projects that are arriving with tenants already booked. Half of the space of the 2.1 million square feet of offices under construction in the city has been pre-leased. 75% of the impending deliveries concentrating in CBD markets of Brickell, downtown, and Wynwood, JLL said. Now, they're talking about, of that 2.1 million, the only thing that's under Brickell that's under construction was the 830 Brickell Plaza. That's essentially leased. They're fighting to get their CO like a lot of other projects. Hopefully they'll have that here by year-end 2024. It's been pre-leased. It's done. Wynwood and other key markets in a very similar vein. They've got a lot of good pre-leasing. The gleaming glass sheathed 55-story tower at 830 Brickell, encompassing more than 1 million square feet in downtown Miami's financial district, is 93% pre-leased. Just talked about that. New-to-market tenants account for almost 450,000 square feet of the leasing in the project, which is set for delivery later this year. Class A asking rates and so forth. Okay. Many tenants continue inking short-term deals as they further assess their work forces as a potential, as well as new construction options. So they're kind of holding in there, waiting to see what happens. All right. So look, Miami doing well, but not everybody is doing well. Here's another article from Globe Street. Peak 2026 office vacancy rate could cut $250 billion in value. Now, that used to be a big number. I used to hear $250 billion. That was a big number, but when we owe 30 some odd trillion dollars of debt, and we send out billions of dollars every month to different countries around the world, what's a billion here, a billion there? $250 billion doesn't sound like an overwhelming number. I guess it depends if you're part of that $250 billion. But work from home might have a 14% impact on office demand with 24% vacancy in 2026. For those wondering, and reading from the article, as many have, what impact work from home will ultimately have on the office properties. Moody says it's not going away. They constructed a number of scenarios that project vacancy rates. For the lowest case, work from home demand, 12% less demand. That's the best case scenario, right? 12% less demand in office because of work from home. Vacancy peaks around 22.5%. Remember, we're 20% now, 2024. So they're saying we have about a 2.5% increase in the next 2 years. The larger demand reductions, of course, produce more dire estimates, coming in at 26.2% and 28.4%, with work from home going to 20 to 25% rates. Let me. This is what we're talking about here. Okay, let me scroll that up a little bit so you can see it. So in a nutshell, they did let me get my hands in the screen here. They did an average, right? So we're talking about, on the low end, 12% of companies are going to continue to work from home, or companies are only going to need 12% less office space because they have a few folks working from home. On the higher end, they modeled up to 28%, which unfortunately is what I am seeing on boots on the ground. And what I'm hearing is about 30% reduction of office space, square footage needed because of the work from home. And listen, part of the work from home is no longer just bodies. Work from home is getting morphed into AI and technological advances where you just don't need as many people. I know someone in a marketing company who says he didn't have to hire 3 or 4 positions this year because of the influx of and how they're assimilating ChatGPT and Microsoft's new one. I don't forget the name of it, but these are starting to take away some nominal jobs, some entry-level jobs. And so you combine all that together, Moody is saying we potentially could have 28% less demand, which will continue to skyrocket office vacancy up to 26 to 28% in the next 2 years. I tend to think we're closer to that. Now, Miami, as I said, we've talked about, we're kind of hedged in because we have so many folks who want to get out of some of the blue states, I guess, New York and California and the Northeast, and move down here and take advantage of all the synergies. And it's just like a snowball effect now. It's an avalanche. We're just rolling. So Miami's got a lot of runway, but for the majority of the country, and listen, there's still a lot of submarkets in Miami, like Miami Lakes, Miami Gardens, Broward County as a whole, a lot of Palm Beach, that are suffering just like everybody else is in the nation. So it's really centered primarily on Brickell Avenue in the outskirt markets, the overflow markets, and downtown Palm Beach, where all this influx of migration of companies is focused in those two areas. And there's a lot to be desired in between and in other markets. So don't fool yourself. It's just going to pinch and hurt South Florida as well. All right, let's keep going into the article. It says the discourse around the purported benefits of in-office work emphasized by some CEOs has been prominent in the media. Nevertheless, the argument for maintaining or even increasing remote work practices remain compelling for businesses. If productivity remains stable and costs can be reduced by foregoing physical office space, the rationale for mandating in-office attendance diminishes. So again, the corporate world during the Great Recession responded by cramming more people in less square footage, went to benching, smaller cubes. If you had 10,000 feet with 50 employees, on your next run, you kept the same 10,000 feet, but you put 100 employees in there. Now what we're seeing is the opposite. You're seeing a company say, hey, I had 10,000 feet with 50 employees. I'm only having 20 of them, 25 of them at any given time come through the office. So next time when I get an opportunity, I'm going to cut to 5,000 square feet. And I'm going to take my 5,000 feet from this old building, and I'm going to one of these new buildings with all the new bells and whistles and amenities. It's called Flight to Quality. It's a reminder, please go and subscribe to our shorts on YouTube Commercial Talk channel, where we have a 1-minute clip on what Flight to Quality is. We describe it in detail. And that's what we're seeing. And that's what Moody is picking up on nationally. They anywhere from 12 to 30%, 28%, there'll be less demand because of the work from home that's not going away. And I would say that might even be underestimated. Right? The article continues. It's a good reminder to please keep up with us. If you haven't subscribed to us, look, how do we pay bills? It's Blue Box Real Estate. We're a commercial real estate advisory group. We represent tenants, landlords, and investment sales in South Florida and really throughout Florida. So contact us. Nice little plug-in for our sponsor. But if you go to blueboxre.com and subscribe, you're going to get these articles that we talk about in the podcast on a weekly basis. Beautiful email coming your way. All right, let's kind of shift gears to industrial, where not everything is peachy keen in Miami. And I'm seeing this more and more. Listen, but just before the pandemic and for about 2 or 3 years after the pandemic, you couldn't find a square foot of industrial space vacant. Industrial space is probably doubled. I did a deal just before the pandemic for a client for 30,000 square feet industrial, and the deal was sub $8 a square foot. Right now, if you wanted that same space, it's probably $18 to $20 a square foot in 3 or 4 years. So that's how much the market took off. However, a lot of that was driven because Amazon was just gobbling up every large block of space and every space that came available as an overreaction to the pandemic and everybody being home and going online. They're peeling back some of that growth and giving up some of that space. And we've had a shift a little bit. This is from BizNow. South Florida's big empty warehouses drag down industrial market. There are 48 industrial spaces larger than 100,000 square feet available across South Florida, according to data provided by Cushman & Wakefield. Cushman & Wakefield, this is pretty accurate because they've got one of the heavy industrial teams down here. The vacant spaces total more than 10 million square feet, and their failure to lease is starting to weigh on the market. The pandemic-era surge that defined South Florida's industrial market has come crashing down, with the region experiencing a bit of a hangover as the large blocks that once drove record leasing volumes sit on the market amid tenant demand for smaller footprints. Now, here, one of the things that happened, commercial real estate usually lags the market 18 to 24 months, and you just think about why that is. Chew on that. Have you chewed yet? You got it? Okay, so here's why. The market tanks or the market shifts or there's a huge black swan event like the pandemic. Why does it take 18 to 24 months for commercial real estate to pivot? Well, you got leases, first of all, that have to roll. You've got properties that need to be developed, and that takes time. And so you see a huge trend. Large blocks, we need them. Amazon and others are just gobbling up. Delivery companies, DHL, FedEx, these guys, import, exporters. Everyone's online, ordering online. We need a lot more warehouse space. And so what happens? What do the developers do? Well, we've got this plot of land that we had like a 10-year run to develop industrial. We got to capitalize on this increased demand that's being pushed by the pandemic. Start building. Let's get going. So they start these construction projects. It takes 18 to 24 months to get them off the ground and built. And here's what happens. By the time they finish, that trend just went, whew, it popped. That trend stopped. People the market responded, the market pivoted once again, but it's too late. It's too late. The damage is done. These developers built. I'm seeing, I drive to Gratney to get to my office, and if you're familiar from South Florida, you know where that's at. But I'm passing beautiful, large, empty buildings with CBRE and Cushman and Lincoln Properties and all these banners, Link and others, just available. Yeah, I didn't see that 3 years ago. Again, it's because commercial real estate takes 18 to 24 months to respond to up markets, down markets, black swan events. And unfortunately, you got these bubbles that happen, right? You got an overreaction, and now you have too much space, too little demand. During the pandemic, it was this way. You had too much demand, too little space. So the developers come in and say, oh, let's build. And then the demand inches down, and now they're stuck. And that's why, look, commercial real estate's a big boy game. It takes a lot of money, a lot of stay with it, and these guys will be fine. A lot of these large blocks are not built by mom and pop guys. These are built by Bridgeport and Link and so large groups, and they're going to survive. But they're going to, someone's got a lot of answers to give to their corporate boards and so forth. Why the space is vacant. And there was a time where these guys were making millions and millions of dollars. The brokers just popping deals. Couldn't do anything. But now there's 10 million of these large blocks of space available. Combined vacancy across Miami-Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach counties has doubled in the last year to 3.9%, according to C&W. The pace of leasing is down 23% from 2019 before the pandemic upended market dynamics, and a 2.4 million square feet of leasing activity from January through March marked the worst first quarter performance in the last 5 years. The larger blocks have been sitting for a longer amount of time than what we would think would be typical. Aaron Byers, industrial broker at Collier's Miami office. Rents have nearly doubled since 2019, causing sticker shock for tenants that are in the market. More than 29 million feet of new industrial space has been delivered in the last 5 years, and another 6 million square feet is under construction, according to Cushman & Wakefield. Just 10% of the under construction space is pre-leased. See, that's what we talked about. 29 million square feet of new industrial product has been delivered, and another 6 million in the last 5 years. Another 6 million is under construction, and just 10% of it is leased. That's that overreaction. It's just bound to happen because of these cycles. And it's not like the stock market. Stock market can pivot quicker now. All of a sudden, and I recommend, I'm not a financial advisor, but don't overreact to the stock market. You lose 10%, you lose 20%. I can't guarantee anything, only the Lord knows, but it's going to come back, right? If you can just withhold, it's going to come back. Maybe that's usually a good time to buy. Well, the market can pivot a lot faster. You see these ups and downs a lot faster. It could happen in a day. It could happen in a week or month. It can't do that with bricks and mortar. You can't do that when you have to buy land and hire an architect and design it and get a permit, deal with the city, start construction. And again, it's 18, 24-month cycle, especially for construction of industrial. Retail. For office, it's even further down the road. It's 3 to 4 years, right? And so that's what happens. This is the part that's gotten stuck here. 6 million under construction, only 10% of it leased. South Florida market has 2 or 3 years of industrial supply for spaces larger than 150,000 and 300,000 respectively. Beautiful chart. If you're listening to the podcast, I encourage you to also tune into the Commercial Real Estate Talk channel where you can see these beautiful charts. Look at the asking rents. Okay, so the asking rents is this blue line. Look at where we were back here before the pandemic, Q1, and look at how far it took off. We are looking at, let's see here, asking rent of $8.74 Q1 of 2019. Today, asking rent of $16.27. That's a 50%. Now, that's overall. I don't know where you're going to find quality industrial space for $16 today. So that's the average. Now, look at the orange line is leasing activity. Leasing activity peaked in Q3 of 2019. The pandemic hit, and you see a downturn. But then you see quarter 3 of 2020, quarter 4, quarter 1 of 21, quarter 2, quarter 3, quarter 4, 2022. You see this just massive increase here in the middle. And you're talking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 quarters of just historically high leasing activity for industrial space. No wonder these guys said, put the shovels in the ground and let's start building. But all of a sudden, Q4 2022, you see this cliff, and it really hasn't recovered. It kind of looked like it was inching back up, and then Q1, another cliff downward. So look, these Q3s, Q4 are probably related to the holidays, right? But and here's where we are again. And now we are back to well below pre-pandemic levels when it comes to the last few quarters. And these big industrial landlords are going to have to start adjusting. This is a question for tenants. And a lot of what we do is focused on tenants. When do these rates start coming down? Because this doesn't make any sense. If you look at the last quarter, leasing activity dropped by nearly 50%. But we saw a huge increase in the rental rates. Well, when will these rental rates not only stagnate, but when will they start coming back down? And they're going to inevitably have to, my guess is, come down somewhere around here where we were 2 or 3 years ago. It's going to happen because you can't sit there with vacancy. South Florida industrial development pipeline. Here's another beautiful chart. Construction deliveries, unfortunately, look at the blue. The blue is highest here in Q1 of 2024. Than at any time in the last 5 years. And again, match that up with leasing activity, and you've got a problem. And so Miami office shines while industrial whines. And that was the best I could come up with. Well, thank you. That is it for our podcast. Listen, a few things. If you like what we're doing with the resources we're doing, with the podcast, with the commercial real estate shorts, and you want to dive further into commercial real estate, let me commend to you commercial real estate office leasing. And this is a great way to learn commercial real estate, get an in-depth look. We've even got a beautiful hardcover for you if you like hardcover copies. But the glossary alone will be worth the investment. And what we do in this book is we not only teach commercial real estate, but we created essentially a business transaction, and you kind of get in the car and go with me and learn commercial real estate. It's almost as having a mentor in the book. Yours truly, 30 years worth of knowledge into that book, and you learn in a narrative form the commercial real estate transaction from start to finish, particularly a tenant representation. So get your copy. If you haven't gotten a copy, go to don'tsignthelease.com/book. That's the easiest way to find it. Soon it's going to be commercialrealestatehelp.com. We're transitioning away from the Don't Sign the Lease concept. But thank you all for tuning in. Remember Proverbs 20:18, plans are established by counsel, by wise counsel wage war. And that's what we're trying to do to help the business community here, provide good counsel when it comes to commercial real estate. We track commercial real estate so you can focus on your business. All right. Thank you. God bless. Hope everyone had a wonderful 4th of July, and we'll look forward to talking to you again next week. Good day.